This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast coming at you Sunday night. It's July 14th, and we're back from Thomas & Mack Center after the Wolves' second Summer League game. I feel like normally, doing this every year, we're here again with Kyle Theige, like, you kind of, the first game happens, and you're like, okay, I've seen the players play. What are we going to talk about? What even really matters for the rest of the time? I think this team is fun and really interesting. And I think we'll go through the players like we did last time, Kyle. But with whether it's Dillingham, Shannon, some of the roster guys, the two-way guys, I feel like being out here and just watching them, I'm getting a better feel for them. I'm actually like learning something, not watching a couple players who are never gonna play for the Wolves. This is the most, I think, interesting or relevant maybe summer league team that I've covered out here, and it's just a fun group. It's a fun group to watch play. We'll get into it again, but it's your last night. Last night in Vegas.
Mics are on, so progress from the last pod. No, it is a fun team. And the whole time I've been here this season, I've just kind of been struck by, again, I think this is my 10th year going to summer league, which is really sad just because it's getting bigger and bigger, and it's cool. It's still an awesome spot to network and to watch a bunch of games, but also it's the lowest of the low sometimes in terms of basketball quality. And luckily, what the Wolves have been doing these first two games, they're a good summer league team that has like words like identity or tenacity are just things that are not brought to the desert, at least not to
Defense?
Thomas & Mack. Yeah. But this team actually has real grit. Like today was one of the more physical. You and I were sitting kind of baseline today with our seats. It was there was a lot of physicality. They were letting them play a little bit. And that's awesome. Like that's kind of like almost FIBA international basketball, the way that they let them play. So, and again, you look at a box score quick, the 8 guys who really played are 8 guys that are all, I mean, Jesse Edwards, for example, is probably a lower on the tier, but
Still a two-way guy, though.
All 8 guys could have a chance to like really make some noise with, as we were calling them, post-game, like the big Timberwolves, right? The big team. So I thought there were some really interesting performances, some guys that maybe I was looking forward to that just kind of fell flat. But maybe we just start with the guy who popped the most because of what he did in game 1 versus game 2, and that was Jaylen Clark.
Yeah, just quickly, for listeners, I would say if there's one game in summer league, I'm assuming if you're listening to this like a week later, like what happened in summer league, I would say this would be the game,
absolutely,
to watch. I mean, who knows? Maybe the other games will be better too. But it was actually a good basketball game. And I think we got a little bit of insight into where all those 7 players on the team that are on the roster kind of stand. And if you want to go watch the game in person with some other Wolves fans, Falling Knife Brewing Company. This episode is brought to you by Falling Knife Brewing Company. They are showing the Tuesday night game 3. Summer League game in the tap room there. There's a 4th game on Thursday night. They're not going to be showing that one. It's a really late tip out here in Vegas on Thursday night. But get to Falling Knife on Tuesday night. I know they've been showing all these games. People have been coming out to watch them. They've had some of the Lynx games. They had the Lynx Fever game earlier. Was that earlier today?
Yeah, the Lynx fell to the Fever.
Yeah, so they're still staying committed to the tap room, to showing Wolves, Lynx games, all that sort of stuff. So, yep, Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. But yeah, let's start with Rob and maybe talking about the way in which he started this game very differently. They called a timeout about 3.5, 4 minutes into the game, or it was a dead ball or something. I looked at the box score, and Rob had taken 7 shots. After we talked about in game 1, Rob seemed much more passive offensively. He only had 4 points. He really came out looking to score in this game, and we talked to C. Hines, the summer league coach, after the game too, about the ways in which they were trying to get Rob going a little bit more offensively. Clearly, the focus for him with summer league is focusing on the stuff that are not already NBA skills. They know he's going to be an NBA shooter. In time will be, as C. Hines said, a prolific overall scorer in the NBA. I think they're emphasizing a lot of the other stuff with him, but it felt like, for himself to really come out sort of aggressive, to just be able to then play his game through it. I think he took 7 shots, like I said at the beginning. And then what did he finish shooting here? He shot 14 shots for the game, so 7 for the rest of the game. I thought it was good. Just, for us to be able to get all right, this is what he actually wants to be getting to. This is what his game really looks like. That was the first thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, he had 8 points in that first 4 or 5 minutes, and he had 4 points right in game one. It's interesting to watch him. It's also been really interesting to talk to him after the game because he knows he's a prolific scorer, to take one away from C. Hines, but not being able to prolifically score in these first 2 games is bugging him more than anyone knows. Yep. And he puts on a good face during the game, and he's a good teammate. And again, these first 2 games, I think he has 13 assists and 2 turnovers. Yes, some of them are in transition, but some of them too, like on that pick and roll with Jesse Edwards, where he, I think, kind of gets like tripled, and Jesse Edwards just rolls to the basket, and he threads a needle to find him. So, and then he had that one, remember, Daishen Nix went back door, Rob finds him, and then Daishen finds Jesse Edwards for the
hockey
dunk.
assist. Yeah.
Yeah. So he wants to score, and he talked about post game. John Wall was sitting in front of us, and John Wall, through not only being from North Carolina, but also a Kentucky guy, has kind of taken Rob under his wing. So after Rob played, to his opinion, terrible on Friday night, John Wall called him, and they just kind of chatted and just said, hey, keep doing you. This summer team and this coaching staff is forcing or asking Rob to try to emphasize his playmaking. And I think it's kind of ahead of schedule in a way. Like, it's looked more prolific. I mean, from what I saw, like pre-draft stuff, all of 14 minutes of research, it was all about being a bucket. But could he? He's going to be a backup point guard on a team that, as Jaylen Clark said later, like gave Anthony Edwards all that money. Right. Like you got a bunch of guys on this team that are going to be fed before Rob. So tonight he did look for a shot a little more. 8 assists, which were all contributing to winning. He's still small. He's still there was a moment where I think he got down the middle of the lane, and then he had that, like, he leaned into the guy, the offensive foul, or he was afraid, not afraid, but like he didn't just go to the rim because he is small. So he is constantly going to be picked on defensively in switches and screens and stuff. And how can he fight around that? But for these first 2 games, I mean, there's been way more pros to kind of put in his column than negatives.
Yeah, I think what I've learned about watching him is he needs help to create an advantage right now.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He doesn't physically. I think he's still, like, he talked about having tired legs. I think he's kind of not exactly 100% from what I've heard. I mean, fine to be playing, but like the burst hasn't really been there, and then he is undersized. He talked about after the game needing to put on weight, and that's pretty obvious. So I thought it was a good adjustment in this game as they put him in pick and roll a lot more. You talk about the the Knicks play, and they put Edwards out there, who's the 7-footer guy from West Virginia, who's on a 2-way. He's kind of, I think he'll be like the Iowa Wolves, like Rudy Gobert facsimile, but they were just putting him in pick and roll there. And that's where, for me, for the first time, I was like, okay, here we go. Now Rob has a step on somebody. He can get to his shot. He can find a pass there. And I think this will be true in October too, in the first game of the season. It's probably not going to just be a situation of like, here you go, one-on-one, just cross him up, isolate, and go. Put him in pick and roll. Put him in ball screen action or in some sort of action. His first 3 of the game, it was Miller and Nix were playing off of each other in a pick and roll, sort of in a 2-man action there, and Rob's guy came in to help on the Miller and Nix action, and Nix found Rob, and he hit that above the break 3 right there. Like, I think Dillingham is going to need things to open him up while he's 19 years old and 165 pounds. But that doesn't mean he can't score. And I mean, didn't watch all the Kentucky games or anything like that, but I did go through and watch like the synergy clips of it. And it was surprising to me watching those clips and then, going and reading some of these scouting reports and stuff like that about question marks about his playmaking. Like, I think there's things to be concerned with, or like this is going to take some time with him. I don't think the playmaking is one of those. I would actually like them to put him in those situations so as to have that advantage, play make for himself or for his teammates there. I thought that helped a lot, and they played Edwards a lot more at the 5 so as to put him in pick and roll, which meant a little bit less Leonard Miller in this game. But I think with Rob, that was the main thing we've seen there is more playmaking. Still needs a little bit of help to get going offensively.
And there's just, I mean, you could say this is the case for a lot of guys. I don't know if that's true, but to me, Rob's going to be one of those guys that will just look better when he's playing with even better players. Sure. You know what I mean? Because just the spacing, again, he did have some chemistry with Jesse Edwards, who they've known each other for all of 4 or 5 days, running a little pick and roll. Well, I want to see that with a Rudy Gobert, and not a Jesse Edwards whose hands.
Well, what better player to create advantages for you?
Right.
I mean, that is offensively, that's Rudy's thing.
I don't think he's ran a pick and roll in summer league with a guy that could pop like Carl. So again, just a little. It's a little cluttered. Again, someone said something about maybe had a little banged up foot in the pre-draft, whatever. He doesn't look 100%. And these guys are all just trying to acclimate now to what is like the NBA, but on AAU steroids, this schedule. But I go back to the playmaking, and it sounds so stupid because it is a tallied assist. And I know I was getting into it with someone about these assists in transition, but I always just think for a guy who has told you post-game, I really want to score. Like, I'm such a prolific scorer.
The transition thing's dumb. That's like literally what they want him to do. Like,
but even when he gives it up on a 2-on-0, that's he is trying so hard to be a playmaker because he knows, and he talked post game that Finch is in his ear, that when you start, and you're not actually starting the starting five, but when you start playing in October and November, a lot of times, man, it's just gonna be you getting other guys fed or you getting other guys in the right position. So he's not gonna ever get taller. Maybe he can add a couple more pounds. I think even like 5 pounds on him would be really beneficial. But I think just, more reps of he came into the league and people said he might already have like a top 10 handle in the league. And you saw his pre-draft stuff. Like, he is incredible, but it just wasn't, it was a little sticky. It wasn't as great. I don't know if that's some of the being bounced off, by bigger guys. Indiana really went at him. They threw some guys at him to kind of try to punish him on defense. But so far so good. You want to see a kid who, the height and weight thing aside, the big number for me is that he's 19. Like, that is different than 2021. I mean, Terrence Shannon Jr., we'll get into him, has had 4 more years of just being alive. Right. And I think with Rob, he just wants to continue to work on his playmaking, find his shot a little more. But he is by far the most interesting guy to watch next week because he's giving you a little bit of everything now, right? Bad offensive game on Friday, still made winning plays. A little more offense tonight. But he's still, if you text me, what is it now? They probably play Tuesday. Like, hey, Rob has 32 in the third. Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I think I'm not worried about like the offense and his own individual bucket getting that.
Right.
That is at least. I mean, there's no guarantee he's going to be awesome at that in the league, but that is his most likely to translate NBA skills. So I'm not focused on that. I mean, the main thing I was focused on coming in and watching here was the playmaking. We talked about that. And then defensively, I mean, I know we are going to be doing a podcast in like November and be talking about how hurtful is Rob Dillingham's defense.
Yeah.
That's gonna happen, and it's gonna be part of the calculus of this whole Dillingham season because he's gonna be 19 years old. He's gonna be 165, 70 pounds this season, and that's gonna be a little bit of an issue. But I think I referenced this when we were talking the other day. The Monte Morris thing last season, even though it was just a couple of months, he was supposed to come in and be a below-average defender. And I think coming into a rotation or to play in the Wolves rotation, you had to be a guy that guarded. The Wolves didn't play guys all season who didn't guard. And I think like that's already Rob knows that. And I asked him after the game just kind of about the defensive side of the floor. And what he said was, I feel like when you work out with certain players that do certain stuff, it pushes you to do the same thing. You see all the dudes, a bunch of dudes that play super defense on the Wolves. I may not be the best, but I have to match their intensity even if I'm not right there. So I'm just trying my hardest. That's what you want, right? Is that commitment to it or the understanding, right? The acknowledgement of that's not really my thing, but I have to do it because that's what the Timberwolves do. That's already being hammered home to him in July, and it will in training camp as well.
And he had a couple steals tonight. He was on the ground for a couple loose balls, but not to, again, this is ramen. We just came off of steak in April and May, but you remember that game 2 of the Wolves-Nuggets game series that was so physical and prison rules, and everyone was just like, holy shit, like if the Wolves can play like that, that is how the summer Wolves played today against the Pacers
for sure.
With Daishen Nix and Jaylen Clark and Terrence Shannon Jr. So he is never going to be the best defender because he physically can't do it, but he did kind of have like a little brother of seeing all his bigger brothers just being physical in the backyard playing football, and he tried to do that, and I thought he said all the right things, and if he can do all that other stuff and kind of develop his portfolio a little more, he'll start to think less because you can tell he's thinking out there, and then he's just going to start to score. And long term, this team needs him to be more of a scorer, but short term, I think they just need him to kind of be that backup point guard to get other guys in their spots. And I thought he did a really good job of that tonight.
To move over to Shannon, with Rob, we're doing the thing where we're trying to accentuate the positives, right? We're like, the playmaking's there, or like the offense is going to come. With Terrence Shannon Jr., he's just been awesome. He's just been awesome. I think, we haven't watched every team out here play, but I think putting on my objective hat, like he's been one of, if not the best player I've watched play, in a summer league game. Up there with like Castle when we were watching him yesterday. Like we did a pod last week or 10 days ago or something like that, and I was like, it would be a major win for the Wolves if they come back from summer league and you could say, I feel good about Terrence Shannon Jr. in the rotation. And through 2 games, I don't know like how much closer to that I personally, could be. There's going to be some adjustment to moving, like we said, to when he plays with the big Wolves, the 4th or 5th option rather than the 1st or 2nd option on this team. That we knew that adjustment was going to come. But what he's looked like as a lead option, what he's looked like physically, it's for whatever it is worth, he's been one of the best players, I think, thus far in Summer League.
And I also thought he played bad today. Or like in the
he started
in the moment, it was a little because he just comes off a huge performance on Friday, and then midway through the second quarter, I think he was held scoreless. But he was one of those guys. Kind of reminded me how we do this with Ant sometimes, where you just watch the whole game and then you go look at the box score and you're like, wait, he led the team in scoring.
Yeah, right.
Like,
totally.
He had 19 points, 6-11 shooting, 4 rebounds. But what really stood out is the 2 steals and the 3 blocks. Because I didn't really do much draft prep, but I knew he was a bucket. I knew he was really physical. What you say, 4th in the country in free throw attempts. Again, had 8 tonight. But the defensive stuff, man, he'll just all of a sudden there'll be a possession and he's not in the play, and then he'll just fly out of nowhere and get a block.
Dude, that block right in front of us was
incredible.
Yeah, he just timed it up perfect. I think Minott was guarding. I don't even know how to say the dude's name. Yeah, whatever. But it was like, I remember I was being there. I'm like, dude, this guy's gonna go to the right hook. This guy's gonna go to the right hook. And like Josh was trying to like keep him away from his left shoulder, and he got to his left shoulder to get to the right hook. And Shannon was there, like met it at the apex. They got out in transition, and then Josh, the guy guarding the ball originally, goes and finishes down on the other end. The physical tools and the competitive like spirit defensively is there. The question is going to be, maybe more so when if he does get into the rotation beginning of the year, is the end of the rotation, and he's guarding the guy in the corner, right? Do you have that discipline to kind of like be able to play too, of like, oh, here I am as the secondary rim protector, and the ability to get back to the corner, seeing things. I think there's going to be part of that, but I really like that block. Like he timed it up perfect. He didn't like oversell out, because then his guy would have been wide open in the corner there. Also from talking to some of the Wolves people, they're really excited about his defensive potential. And from what I've seen, mostly just the physicality and the competitive spirit, like, I don't know, I do see a defender out there for them. And that's on top of, the top line stuff, which is the offense and the physicality, getting downhill, getting to the line. I'm high on Shannon right now.
You can tell too. I asked him about this post game about some guys do shy away from physicality, even in the big leagues, but he just seems to I don't know if he gets this from Daishen Nix, who is about as close to a running back playing basketball than I've ever seen.
Can't wait to talk about him.
He is so physical, but Terrence Shannon Jr. just has this knack of wanting to draw contact, and it makes him stronger. Again, he just attacks the rim. He was telling me after the game that's not really a part of his game that he's always had. He's kind of developed it. It's a thing
that was interesting.
It's a thing that this team needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just guys. I've always said that there are nights where you look at a box score and outside of Ant getting to the line 8-10 times, it's like, okay, and then Mike had 2, and Kyle Anderson had 5. Like, it's nice to get those free throw attempts up, because that's, to me, one of the easiest ways to just reset all the bad stuff that you got going on and just get free points. So he was great. He did acknowledge that he had 3 fouls, I think, in the first 3 minutes, and he was like, "There's no way in hell I'm going to be that guy that fouls out with 10." But he's a really good dude. He did talk about how, I brought up that quote about that OKC rookie a couple weeks ago. Terrence Shannon Jr. was that dude at Illinois, and I think he's aware that he won't be that dude at the next level. So he just wants to do what.
What's that quote?
He wants to do what you're talking about the one he's like, I know that when I get to the big team, it'll be Ant and Carl, and they're shooting all the shots. My role is to just play defense, run to the corner, get out in transition, and attack when I can. Just letting the game come to me, playing good basketball, and kicking it when 2 is on me. Just letting the game come to me. I think that's really smart. He did talk about...
That's one of those... I tweet that quote out, and I'm like, I know every Wolves fan is going to be like, yes!
He did say in the audio, just letting the game come to me 14 times. It was like the new Jaden McDaniels drinking game. But no, I think he's trying to develop some skills, impress the coaches. He said, he was talking to Finch again. Finch and Nas and Jaden and Luka were all there again, but just telling him to be himself, be aggressive. But the defense to me has stood out because we saw the offense on Friday and even tonight. Kind of didn't realize that he was the leading scorer, but he was. His catch and shoot, he said to you and I post game, is the biggest thing that he needs to work on. There are times where the ball will flow smoothly and it'll get to him spaced, and he does immediately just pitbull again, put his head down and go to the rim. When it's like, if you just let that fly, like I talk about how Rob will benefit from playing with all-stars because it'll open up more space. I think for Terrence, sometimes there'll be less space because Rudy Gobert and Carl are in the paint.
They're playing 5 out on this team. It's not like that. He will get pulled if he does, as will everybody, if they don't take open catch and shoot threes. That's obviously something this team needs to do, and that's part of that adjustment, though, right? When you're going from being the first or second option when on the floor to the fourth or fifth, that's kind of the rewiring you need to put in your head of like, okay, I'm taking my downhill opportunities when they're there, but if there's a catch and shoot 3, that's something he needs to take and do. I think that'll be probably the biggest, maybe along with the defense a little bit, but the biggest swing skill of like, okay, Finch is going to actually lean into him playing in the rotation. If he's willingly catching and shooting them, they're looking comfortable and they're going in at a good clip. I think that's how we see, more Terrence Shannon Jr. There'll be
lineups, short stints, whatever, this season where it's like Nikhil, Ant, Jaden, TJ, and Rudy, and that'll just be about as good of a 5-man defensive lineup you can put out there, along with some. Again, that's the beauty of what Terrence Shannon Jr. is doing, and to your earlier point about have you seen, Reed Shepherd's looked really good for the Rockets. I think there's been a couple other guys, first-year guys, that have looked pretty good. I think this rookie class has been a little more impressive than maybe people thought. But the fact that all those guys are 3rd overall pick, 5th overall pick, 7th overall pick, and Terrence Shannon Jr. was late in the 20s, it's pretty safe to say. Selfishly, when I get back home, I want to keep watching these Summer League games, but if we woke up tomorrow and they're like, hey, they're shutting him down for the rest of Summer League, would not surprise me, simply because he has showed enough now to, again, you got to keep it going. You got to bring it into October and training camp for the rest of the summer. But I don't know how you don't today on the 14th be like, that dude is going to be a rotation player come October.
I like that. Let's grab our first break. Today's show is brought to you by Adriana Lonick at Coldwell Banker Realty. And if you are in the process of considering buying or selling a home, go to the dancingrealtor.com to connect with Adriana. That's also in the show notes below here on YouTube or in your podcast player to be able to reach out to her if you are in that process. That's where it starts, is contacting a realtor, understanding what it is that you want to buy, what you want to pursue, or what it is that you're going to be selling. She's also adding a perk that by setting up a consultation with her, you'll be entered to win some Wolves tickets for next season. I know a handful of you listeners have already set up consultations with Adriana at thedancingrealtor.com, or you can call or text her at 715-304-9920. Again, her name's Adriana Lonick. She works with Coldwell Banker Realty. If you're considering next steps in home buying or home selling, that's the place to begin. And if you already own a home, today's show is also brought to you by Your Home Improvement Company. And this summer, YHIC is running a special on both bathroom and window remodels, whether it's a complete bathroom remodel or just a tub to shower conversion. They're offering 30% off on those bathroom renovations at Your Home Improvement Company. Or if you're needing to get your windows replaced, they have a buy two, get two triple pane windows for free promotion going on this summer. They come with a lifetime warranty and are installed by certified professionals. And a nice little perk with them is whether it's any sort of home improvement project, it's zero money down, zero interest, and zero payments until 2026. So if you know it's something you're going to want to be getting done here in the not too distant future, get that process started. Go to check out YHIC at yourhomeimprovementco.com, or you can call them at 866-777-YHIC. Your Home Improvement Company, where it's your home made better. You want to do Daishen Nix or Jaylen Clark next, Kyle?
Jaylen Clark, because he deserves it. Because I thought, and we'll get into Daishen, who might actually now be my favorite player. Just when we'll get into it. But Jaylen Clark, I was most excited to see him on Friday. Not because, I think he's the best of that young bunch, just his story is so much more unique than everyone else. He hasn't played professional competitive basketball. I think he tore his Achilles in March of 2023. Fast forward, now we're in July 2024. It's a long time for a guy that, as we did kind of learn today, is like a hoops junkie and a film addict. So we talked about after game one that it took him like 3 quarters to just kind of figure out what was going on.
Which we could see too, right?
Yeah.
Like just watching.
But it was little things like 50-50 balls that he wouldn't jump to. Athletically, he almost concerned me because I was like, man, he's just not really popping. Totally different show today. He joked post game that he made a bet with one of the assistant coaches. He was going to get 5 steals. He ended up with 6, but his line was 9 points on 4 or 5 shooting. He hit his 1 3-point attempt, 2 rebounds, and assist. A block, but 6 steals. He's not, like I said on Friday, he's not as long as Nikhil. He's maybe not as big as an Ant, but pound for pound,
defensive film was good today, man.
Defensively, he just gets it and he gets into you. And I think some of that, knowing those tendencies, is something he told you after the game of. He was up in Vegas, of all places. You could do so many things, and he is of age. He was just up in his room last night till 2 a.m. watching Indiana Pacers highlights. Like. He is maybe the biggest sicko on the team, and I love that about him.
Yeah, no. I would say, I'm not going to read the whole quote, but it was, I thought his quotes he gave us about his return to play, I have it all in a really long tweet. If you want to go to my Twitter to read that. But from a basketball standpoint, what stood out was the defense, right? That was the known skill,
right,
coming out of the draft last season, was that he was going to be a defender. The question mark was on the shot. We talked after the first game about how I thought the shot looks different, and he has been working on that shot. That's something he could work on, in the past 9 months, right? Even before he was cleared to physically play. And I asked him about the shot afterwards, and he said, shooting is not a concern for me no more. There's still some times that I should still shoot it. Instead, I dribble. But I think as time goes on and everything, I'll learn how to do all that. But I think I'm on a good trajectory right now. I have a clip of him shooting the 1-3 he took and made today, and it looks like a corner 3-point shooter. That looks like a comfortable shot, a repeatable mechanic for him, and that's big. Because if the defensive stuff that we saw him do today translates at all at the NBA level, then the only thing he is away from being a player that you consider being a rotation player in the NBA is a passable jump shot, right? And I'm excited through the rest of summer league training camp. We'll see some preseason from him of like, all right, what does he look like in an NBA context? Because that was a high risk lottery ticket, I guess, that they purchased after taking him after tearing his Achilles a year ago. But this was really good, I felt like, to see with Clark, where I was kind of getting to the point in my head, he's not the biggest guy or anything. I needed to see that defense sort of pop to kind of be a little bit more re-inspired on the Jaylen Clark train, and I'm there after this for sure.
And that's what C. Hines said too after the game, right? He's like, I'd heard that Jaylen Clark is a dog defensively, but I needed to see it. He's like, now I see it. Now I'm a believer. So on that on that watching film thing or whatever, it was just a really cool quote where it was kind of summed up. He goes, I feel like people on defense just play defense. I'm trying to really play defense. Yeah. And then he talked about watching like Jarris Walker for the Pacers. Like when he puts it in his left hand, is he trying to spin or is he half spinning? I look for those types of things. So, for example, when Johnny Furphy, first-round pick for the Pacers, comes down, I know he's shooting it on the other side. So those little things help me because I know where he's trying to get to. So now I'm just trying to beat you to the spot. And you followed up, have you always been like that? Or, did tearing your Achilles and having 15 months off make you like a film junkie? He goes, I had to be like that at UCLA because I wasn't playing. And he goes, I went through my first 2 years. I wasn't really playing, but I could always play defense. He goes, Coach Cronin and them really helped me out a lot. And this is kind of a cool quote, but he goes, I got a gift and can see things before they happen. So that might not be the lawnmower quote, but
it's a little bit like Lazar Hayward, though. So.
Yeah, right. You can Lazar sees dead people. Jaylen turns people dead, but he just reads he reads the passing lane so well. And then the thing that I asked him after the game of how do you feel? He's like, I feel so good. And those 50-50 balls on Friday.
He looked like it too, right? Like, I mean, all over the place.
And stuff,
yeah, like there wasn't – he looked like a guy who was cleared to play physically a while ago, right? Yep. And this just happens to be months later, the first game he can actually play in. And the first game did look like it was like, okay, a little bit hesitant, like figuring out my body a little bit. But, I mean, he was all over the place. What did he say? He's like, if something happens at this point. Like, I'm going to go – I'm going to play, and yeah.
And you did have that thing I joked about earlier, but he goes, I'm just trying to, like, do my role and serve this thing. He goes, I'm not going to come down with the big wolves and, like, isolate my guy. He goes, we paid Anthony Edwards all that money already, so I'm just trying to really do what I think I'll be doing to get an opportunity if I play with the top team. But all these guys, the 5 or 6 that we've kind of been highlighting in the first pod and now this one that everyone's really interested in, they all have different stories, right? Like, Rob has the most investment because he's a lottery pick, but also costs future picks. Terrence Shannon Jr. is the oldest. Josh and Leonard are trying to, kind of establish themselves. But no one is happier, despite how bad I've said Summer League can be, no one is happier to just be playing basketball again than Jaylen Clark.
Sure.
And I think it's been cool to be around him all weekend to see that, people that listen to this that have been in been in a car accident or had an injury, you're kind of hesitant that first time you get back in the car. And he said it like I told the coaches I was nervous on Friday. And then tonight he said, F it, literally was his quote, that I'm just going to go out there and throw myself to the wolves. And he contributed to winning. I mean, when you had him out there with Daishen and Terrence Shannon Jr. and then they played a Timberwolves style of basketball that I think fans became accustomed to all regular season in the playoffs. I don't know I think he's got some more seasoning. I don't think he's a rotation player come October, but when his number is called upon, he'll be ready to play. And he just had a big smirk on his face because he's been through a lot. And he said that no one really saw the unseen hours. He loves living in Minnesota. He said everything happens for a reason, and he's glad that Tim and the crew kind of gave him a chance. But when people see him out in public, like, oh, how's it going and stuff, like, what have you been up to? He's like, you haven't seen all the work I've put in to get my body back. So really happy for him and really happy to see, he's had a bad game now. He's had a really good game. Mm-hmm. Kind of what can he be like on Tuesday in another setting that is really built for him? Just get up there and run up and down and steal the ball.
I think, this is for sure super rare in Summer League that, like you said at the beginning, the team would have any sort of identity. But it's even more rare to have a defensive identity, and this team has had that. I mean, part of it is just I think that Clark is a good defender, and Shannon is too. But I say that as a segue into Daishen Nix, who has been like he's just kind of been literally like a meme to Wolves fans for his first 12 months here. Actually getting to see him play, actually getting to see him guard. It's always kind of the is he like too big sort of thing? But then you see him he's guarding Jarris Walker, and he
barked at him.
Yeah,
he barked at him in the corner.
Did a lot of things at a lot of guys. I mean, the pointing hasn't stopped just because he's in the game. He pointed after he had that hockey assist or the Dillingham hockey assist that he had the actual assist. He ripped Walker one time and tapped him on the butt, going back the other way, and not in the we're boys sort of way, Like Daishen Nix is like a little mean, but you like it on your
like
team.
He dresses.
Yeah, that's
you know what I mean. Like he has some real swag to him. He had that hockey, or not the hockey assist, but the play you're talking about. He also had that up and under,
nasty.
Which you got to go find. It might be on Instagram, like these highlight reels. But it was so nasty, the move, because he also bodied a guy who then flew right in front of you and I. So then after Daishen finishes the up and under, just stares at him like he's got a little. But also too, going back to this is really, really perverse, but talking about winning basketball in July in Summer League, he hit that three, kind of that step back three, and I think it was a tied game.
Yeah.
Then he pointed again, but that was like a big time shot where they'd blown a lead. They're up 10 late in the fourth. They need a play. Everyone's kind of discombobulated, and he just calls a screen, gets a switch, takes a step back, hits a three, and they win the game. I like watching him play because, again, I do think he was a little bit of a meme. He's the point guy. He's the bench mob. But you actually see him play basketball, and he is...
He can hoop, man.
Yeah, he weighs as much as,
Carl.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, Rob needs to eat as much as Daishen weighs. But he's also... There was cool moments, too, the little tap on the butt thing, but he was always in Rob's ear when those two were on the court. They basically just played all guards and occasionally Jesse Edwards. Mm-hmm. Or, Leonard and Josh kind of being in the guard wing mix or whatever. But he seems to kind of embrace being a veteran on a summer league team. So...
he's played in the league, right?
Yeah.
You could tell he's been in the league for a while.
I'll be honest, when you see the Woj bomb that he gets a two-way, you're like, oh, again, maybe you just use that on someone else. But I feel confident, albeit in 56 minutes of summer league action, that if they needed to call upon him to spot start, because again, Mike Conley,
or spot bench, spot 15 minutes.
He knows the culture. He knows that. If you're going to play, you have to play physical. You have to play fast. You have to play with that 0.5 mentality. And I think him being here long enough has kind of embraced that. So he has had two really, really good games. And if he wasn't on a two-way with the Wolves, he probably would have been signed by another team.
I think so for sure. And again, this matters, right? There's a more direct path to rotation minutes for Daishen Nix if we just look at the depth chart than there would be for, a Josh Minott maybe, or a Leonard Miller, just given that it's obviously a little bit more concentrated in the front court on the Neds, and then maybe Shannon. Shannon has pretty clearly, I think, usurped Minott in terms of the wing pecking order there. But my point is that Nix might be somebody that they have to call on if Mike Conley, rolls an ankle or something like that, and this team is low point guards. Maybe lean into Ant a little bit more, but the idea that in a bad situation and somebody unfortunately gets hurt, I think from Summer League what we can take is a lot more confidence that Daishen Nix could come in and be that two-way guy who's getting minutes a little bit more so than maybe we could have. That would have been Wendell Moore a year ago.
Yeah.
Right? And I think it's fair to say, given what we've seen of him, that he's more of a, right now, an NBA player than Wendell Moore was 12 months ago when he was kind of in a similar, maybe fifth guard on the team sort of spot.
Finished the game with 16 points on 4-9 shooting. Got to the line 12 times, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Again, this is more
the team in plus minus.
Yeah, this is more about kind of the guys that you want to pencil in long term as foundational pieces, like a Rob, like a TJ. But I've been really impressed with Daishen Nix so far in Summer League. Again, I don't think he's the type that they're going to shut down because he's kind of on a two-way. But there are question marks, right? That this roster, albeit maybe the most talented roster again that they've ever had, but there's still these question marks of, I keep bugging you that, Mike played 76 games last year. That's the most he's played since he was 25 years old. Jesus. Ideally, that shouldn't be the plan next year. So if you can have other options, and it's kind of funny that you bring up Wendell Moore. Nothing personally against him, but you invest kind of a late first-round pick in him and get nothing. You kind of were able to find some value in your third emergency point guard, fourth point guard in Daishen Nix, who, again, understands the system, and when he gets out there, he plays Timberwolves basketball. He plays physical, he plays fast, and no good team can have enough nasty players, and he might be the nastiest guy on the team.
Oh, he's going to get punched.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say in a very professional way. If he's on the court and there's a skirmish, if he was on the court for some reason in that Warriors Wolves game, he would have choked out Draymond.
Yes,
because he's
literally. If you did not watch this game, and you listeners I'm talking to, just put your little highlight on Daishen Nix. Even when he's down on the ball and stuff like that, he is being confident and mean the whole time, and it's like Pat Bev, right? When it's on your team, you're like,
he might be. That's a good. He is the new Pat Bev,
and he's in the league right now. Pat,
and he does. Oh yeah, let's say, and we could use a Daishen Nix podcast too. We can maybe have him on here, but no, just I've been really impressed with him again because I shouldn't be bringing up winning basketball when none of this stuff actually matters. But it was cool to see him kind of be a vet, especially for a guy that it would be hard to be a vet to a guy that has already supplanted you just in all realms of life, right? Like
sure.
Rob is the backup we think right now already to Mike Conley, and he's making more money and he's in the league, and Daishen's kind of fighting for his NBA career, and you don't see that fear in him as much as I think Rob still is thinking and calculating what's going on because he's young. Daishen Nix is he just puts his head down.
I think Daishen is doing the things that they're telling him to do. Like, I mean, the guarding part, that's obvious, but I just know they would like running like, particularly when Edwards wasn't in there, it was like the 5 out, but it was like the really static 5 out. I like when you're playing 5 out, but you're kind of constantly like interchanging. I don't think 5 out offense when it's just 5 players planted in one place. Daishen Nix was the only guy like moving around the perimeter. Like, okay, I'm in this corner, I'm going over that side. He moves well without the ball. He looks like he's been in NBA programs before, and that's a big difference. I mean, I think he played 2,000 minutes, or like he played a lot of minutes with maybe not 2,000, but he played a lot of minutes for the Rockets the year before he got here. That Rockets team was basically a G League team. But you're playing in the NBA every single night, and we'll get to Miller and Minott here next. They look like guys who have not played in the NBA yet, and they have not, and so I don't know. Now, does that water down a little bit of what you think about Knicks in ways maybe that we give Dillingham a little bit more of a pass because he's 19, or maybe we take a little bit away from Shannon because he's 24 years old? I don't know. He looks like a guy, again, more so than Miller or Minott, that I'd be like, all right, it's unfortunate that this guy needs to be in the rotation tonight, but someone's injured. I don't know. I don't think I would mind that as much, and the shot looks okay to me. He didn't shoot well at all in Houston, and that's why until he changes any of that, he'll be labeled as a non-shooter or a bad shooter. But watching Daishen Nix and that big three he hit at the end of the game, like I don't think he like has a skill that is glaring, that is like, this is the reason he's not in a rotation or not in the NBA and a contract. He just needs to kind of, put it all together, maybe get his body in, better shape and all those sort of things. But I'm pleased to see that Nix is doing it, because that was kind of one of my guys where I'm like, I think there's something.
Well, like you said, you expect him to kind of play like some of this because he's been in the league and he hasn't let you down. Plus 37 in these first 2 games. He led the team tonight in minutes, as well as plus minus, like we said. But you came away from that thinking that dude was playing really good defense, right? Or like really physical defense. Yeah. 1 foul. You know what I mean? For a guy that there was a possession.
He definitely fouled more than one time.
Everyone did. And shout out to the officiating for like, apparently you don't go to the bonus like with 17 fouls, which is another just amazing summer league. Like, let's try to keep this train on the tracks moving. We do not need to have reviews or shooting the penalty in the third quarter. But there was one possession where him and Walker were going at it. Walker was a lottery pick for the Pacers last year. Yeah. Where he was shut him down so hard, and then the ball got swung, and the ball actually went down Minnesota's way in transition, and Daishen was still in our corner face guarding Walker, and the ball was 60 feet away from him. So
it's because he's mean.
I think you need those guys, though. I mean, again, you have a team now that we know what the starting 5 is going to be. You know who the 6th man's going to be. You know who probably 7 and 8 are going to be. I mean, Joe Ingles, despite our differences, is going to get some real opportunities early on because...
You and Joe Ingles' differences?
No, you and I's differences on that. I mean, if I was coaching the team right now, Joe Ingles would just give all his minutes to Terrence Shannon Jr. because he's such a dog. But, to know that... We were talking to Jim Pete about this later today. The 15th guy on this team... two-way guys. The 18th guy on this team is good.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. So, nice couple games from him. Another guy that... I really am, and this kind of solidifies everything you said at the intro, I like watching these guys play. This used to be more of, I guess I have to tune in for 90 minutes to watch these summer league games in the summer, but you're seeing real guys that, if called upon, even Jaylen Clark, it's nice to know that the depth chart of, okay, if one is out and maybe the second guy is out in that role, the third guy can come in and at least you don't have to, Finch doesn't have to pull his hair out.
Let's wrap up with Leonard Miller and Josh Minott. They have not yet popped in summer league in the first 2 games. We're 2 in. We said let's give the whole summer league process to kind of see where they're at. But I mean, I guess this is the last pod you and I are going to do. Like, Minott was your guy going back a couple of years ago. Like, how much improvement, I guess, have you seen in him, or is it more still just the like intriguing frame, athleticism, all that sort of stuff?
So it's interesting because I even saw like online during the game, a lot of people are already, I wouldn't say out on Josh. He's a little older. This is obviously he's a little older in NBA years, right? But
21. Yeah.
He's been here now. This will be his third year in the league. I could be rose-colored glasses, or it's late on a Sunday in Vegas, but I've liked a little more of what Josh has done. We can get into Leonard. That's a different story. But I thought, Josh rebounded pretty well. He had, I think 12 and 8 against the Pelicans, more of a low-scoring game, kind of a slower game. And then got to the line 6 times, made all his free throws. Tonight he gets to the line 8 times, connects on 6 of them. He did take 4 threes. Again, the form is always going to be a little wonky, but
it's better than it was when he came in.
And as guys like Nikhil have showed, this might not be the team with the most aesthetically pleasing jump shots, but if they go in, but again, he had 12 boards in a game that they did play small. They don't really have a true center. I know Jesse Edwards is on the roster, and they're kind of, making him the 3rd, 4th, 5th emergency Rudy Gobert. But Josh finished with 15, 12, 2 steals.
Oh, you had 12 boards?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then 2 turnovers where I remember the ones where he was kind of forcing it. His playmaking, his handle's a little loose still, but
yeah, that's a thing, right? It's just like the chaos is still there. And like the first summer league, the chaos was the attraction, right?
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it was the idea that, you harness that a little bit, and you get the lawnmower moving in the right direction, and there's like athletically and physically a lot to be intrigued with there. To me, it's just still more chaos than I would like to be seeing, and you would have liked to see that, at least in my opinion, be a little bit more polished at this point. And that's why I say, like, I'm out watching Miller and Minott, and sorry to keep referencing Wendell Moore Jr., but being like, like maybe this isn't it. But at the same time, it's not like the arrow is going up to me for Miller and Minott either, where I'm like, okay, a leap happened here. We haven't seen them play in 12 months. It's just kind of been, I don't know, plateaued.
Oh God, where are we going with this pod? If you redrafted the 2022 NBA draft, I would imagine, like Josh would go ahead of Wendell. They're both going late.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, like, Josh, I think, has shown me enough stuff. Again, the 12 rebounds tonight, far and away. I mean, I think the next closest guy
maybe I'm underselling it a
was
little
Daishen
bit.
with 7. There are things, I mean, he is not a full-grown zoo-quality giraffe, right? But, like, in that first year, he was like, how a baby giraffe runs? It's just all over the place. Like, all 4 legs go, like, in different directions on a compass. He is kind of now like the growing pains teenager giraffe, but I don't know. I think some people are more sour on him simply because you expected, and maybe.
Well, I'll say what it is for me. It's like I don't. My thing I say with minimum contract guys, right? Like one clear NBA skill, right? That's what you're looking for, and you're in ways with development pieces too. Like that's the beginning of your like path into rotation. If you're a 2nd round pick or whatever, is like, what is that skill? And for me with Minott, there's like a couple things I could see popping over time, but I don't know. It's like I'd love to see him be like a menace at the rim as like that secondary guy coming over and getting blocks. But that again, it's a little bit too chaotic. The downhill stuff isn't like clean and dominant. Sometimes when he finishes it is, but I wouldn't be like, it's different than Shannon, right? Like Shannon, I'm like, this guy knows how to effectively get downhill. Minott, I don't have like a good outline of what it will look like if it does happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And with Josh, we've been hanging out around the team all weekend. I think there's an idea, at least with some people I've talked to, that he's going to get a chance to play next year. And I don't know if I believe that or not, but to me, the biggest thing with Josh comes down to, and this actually will segue perfectly into Leonard Miller too to kind of wrap it up. Does Josh have the mentality of the guys we talked about earlier that said all the right things? They've been doing all the right things, but they said all the right things, right? Like Jaylen Clark's like, I just want to be ready when my number's called upon. And Rob and Theige are like, I just want to do whatever. Like, we're not going to be the guy. We were the guy in our last stop, but now we're just going to contribute to help the guy's life be easier. The guy being Ant, the guy being Carl. With Josh, I don't want to, at the big leagues or whatever, I don't need him to get into transition dribbling. I just want him to be on the wing, cutting. I want him to be attacking the glass. I mean, you can only, athleticism isn't something you can teach, and he still is one of the longest guys on the court. So and this goes back to my whole summer take of taking a half step back. I think it's kind of fun sometimes to just inject a little chaos into a team, because this Wolves team at times became stale in my mind of just all the same type of stuff. And a lot of that stuff sometimes was bad offense or just the same, Kyle Anderson, Rudy Gobert stuff. I wouldn't mind just giving Josh a chance October, early November to be like, okay, what does your chaos translate to at the next level? Because I think Josh has had a solid summer league. Is it as good as maybe we had hoped for being, a couple of years of NBA tutelage and getting all these G League reps? No. But I don't know. I left tonight, Sunday, thinking that he, 15 and 12 had a good night.
That's what I'm not. It's not arrow down to me, but it's not arrow up.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I'm cool with that, and I'll give him another couple days, I guess. You know what I mean? Because if it's arrow down,
because look how much we just pivoted on, or at least me in my head as I sit here right now in 48 hours, like my Jaylen Clark perspective has shifted, pretty significantly. And that's the nature of this. We have so little opportunity to specifically see these players play that for better or for worse, can be swung with like a game or a couple of games. It's a moving, target or whatever of where they're at. So I think Josh and Leonard both have like an opportunity to really show out here, going forward. The Wolves are 2-0. They look like one of the better summer league teams. Maybe they are going to get into the the tournament part of this and have a little bit more light on them going forward. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see that with the both of them. They're just, to me, there's a reason on my podcast I'm putting them at the end of this episode. It's not, they're not the main guys right now.
He's not a buy. He's not a sell. He's truly like a hold, right? And to your point about I was thinking about Daishen Nix. Like Daishen Nix,
a handcuff running back.
Yeah, like if Daishen Nix would have came and you're like, hey, I expect you to kind of at least pop a little bit because you've been around the league long enough, and he doesn't, I mean, he would be 3 months away from pointing at Europeans. You know what I mean? Whereas like with Josh, has he done enough to be like, I still hammer home the whole point of him being 21, him really not having a lot of real meaningful basketball moments, even dating back to his time in Memphis. So
totally.
It is very much to me teenage, and not all teenagers grow up to be great adults. So, I don't know if Josh is going to become a valuable contributing player to this rotation.
He's actually 21, right?
Yeah. Turns 22 in November. But I don't worry. I mean, again, I just want to see more of it. That's like the fun part of it, is I just want to see more of it, because there's also a pathway here where he just lets you down. And, those 12 of 14 from the free throw line to me is not something I ever remember Josh really doing. Again, he didn't play like 9 total minutes in with the big team, but his aggressiveness, just getting to the rim, it's all about his mentals, because even tonight there was a little bit where his body language at times, he seemed so frustrated. Britt's always hammered that home, where you can tell that Josh probably believes that he should be getting some reps. But
I mean, you get that perspective being around the team during the season, like,
oh, for sure. Who knows it better than Britt?
No, I mean, I'm just saying I do too. Like, I think last year, not like he was like angry, but you got like the sense where he's like, this is my second year. It's like the end of my second year, and I haven't got really any opportunity yet. Mm-hmm. That would be hard. I think that's a very human reaction. That's what I would be feeling. I would imagine if I was in that spot. But you happen to be on one of the best teams in the NBA, and he's gonna need to earn anything. Josh Minott will to be able to be on this team, because there are. I mean, at least the way I'm looking at it, like you said, you just ran through it. Like if Ingles is 9, Shannon is 10. That's 10, something's gonna need to happen, or he's gonna need to pop to be able to push himself above a Shannon or an Ingles, which seems like a stretch to me right now.
I'll be done with Josh after this, but what position do you think he plays? And I know in a positionless league and all that jazz, but like what position, like if he's subbed in, like who do you think the 4 other guys are around him in just any given night during the league?
I mean,
like is he a 3?
Yeah, 3-4. It's hard. I mean,
because didn't Finch say during kind of like the training camp leading up to this and stuff that they really wanted to see, can he defend, right? And can he defend on the perimeter? Because his height and his height, he's like 6'9". He was probably just a classic big guy at Memphis, right? Whereas now,
yeah, I mean, I think he came in with the question mark of like, is this like an athletic 4, or is he going to be a wing? And the question, much like it was with like Clark, is like, where's the shot? And I think the shot pushes you in either direction, right? Like if the shot is good or better, then it's more 3, and if not, then he's got to be an energy 4, like, I don't know, in the dunker spot, but I haven't really seen him play there. That goes back to my whole point of like, I don't have in my mind what the NBA outline of what Josh Minott looks like playing is. I've maybe made to transition to Leonard Miller. I maybe made that up in my head, but with Leonard Miller, it just makes more sense to me, at least right now, that he's a big and being used in that sort of way to tap into, his rebounding and the stuff that he can do around the basket, which I think Leonard Miller has that talent there to do it. What I thought was, because they ran a lot more pick and roll, they're trying to get Dillingham going. I would like to see, if they continue to do that going forward in games 3 and 4, I'd like to see Leonard be the ball screen guy for him a little bit more than Jesse Edwards. They kind of went away from Miller overall in the game. He didn't close, I don't think. Didn't close the game. Like, I again think it's important with players like this to even just choose an outline for them and ask them to play. It seemed like Josh had that mold last year. It's like, hey, we want you to be the point of attack defender. You're going to play the 3 on this team. Let's go and see what you can do. Now the roster's changed a little bit more. They got a lot more guards and wings on this team. So I think Josh is playing a little bit more 4. I don't really, know exactly if that's a necessity or whatever. But with Leonard, he's starting at the 5, but like functioning more as a 4 to me. Yeah. At least from a pick and roll standpoint. And to that end, he hasn't popped to me either in the first 2 games, which, I would have come into this hoping that he would pop in a way where he's just kind of physically overwhelming and more athletic around the basket. Like, just even if it's just garbage buckets, like getting offensive rebounds, putbacks consistently, getting rebounds, that sort of stuff, because Miller is like physically imposing at 20 years old himself. But that hasn't all kind of been put together yet, from my perspective.
If we're going to do buy, hold, or sell, like, I don't think I'm going to sell Leonard Miller, but it's also not the best buy I've ever had. I just don't think he played well tonight. And I don't know if he did have, I think he had 5 fouls, led the team in fouls, finished with 7 points on 37 shooting, grabbed 3 rebounds, had a block.
Like, you need more than that.
0 for 2 from 3, only played 17 minutes. I mean, the Wolves ended up playing, I have a finance degree, but like, they ended up playing about 152 minutes tonight of guys that were 6'5" or under. They really epitomized small ball. But with him, the best hope is that they don't need Leonard Miller at all. This is just my opinion, kind of educated opinion, that I do think if it comes down to a true hierarchy of who has a better chance of seeing real minutes in October, November between him and Josh, it would be Josh right now. Could they both just be buried in Iowa? Maybe, but the Leonard Miller thing, like, I don't think he's 2 years away from being 2 years away, but he might just need more.
He's not 2 months away from being in the rotation.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with it. Again,
if you thought he should have played over Kyle Anderson last season, you're an idiot. And I'm talking to myself. So, it is kind of, as we kind of therapeutically talk through this, another game. They have a game on Tuesday and a game on Thursday, and then we'll see kind of how the pool play or whatever works out. It's been really interesting to me to see these guys up close in person, just to get an idea of, like, Daishen Nix is bigger than he looks on my TV, and Rob's a little smaller. But those first-round pick guys, the guys that have been in the league a little bit, have said all the right things. And we haven't, granted, we haven't talked to Josh or Leonard after a game, but if Josh and Leonard are trying to be like, hey, we want, this isn't the Hornets. You don't need to be a star. This team has a lot of stars and a lot of fat contracts. Like, they just need to be ready when their number is called upon. And for Leonard Miller, like, that's not the case right now. He's not going to be ready to come in, even with a skill like rebounding.
They're just probably, like, too young to really embrace being a full-on role player.
Right,
And for them, that, maybe they do have understandably would have aspirations to be something more. But the opportunity to play on this team is going to, if you are one of these guys on the summer league team, Dillingham and Shannon aside, it's going to be because when you're called upon, you can be expected to deliver on role X. And, with Dillingham and Shannon and Clark and even Nix, I feel more comfortable about that ability to deliver within a specific role than I do Miller and Minott. And maybe that's just because they're young. They feel older in this because they've been in the league on the team for a couple of years, but they are very young players still who are, signed long-term, and that helps there. And, but probably need to see a little bit more before I feel confident with them.
And if you're listening to this as a fan, as I would be doing, you're probably like a little bummed out that we've kind of slowed down the speed of this and but of all the 5-6 guys we've talked about, all the 5 or 6 guys that I've been the most interested to watch, in my opinion, and you can push back, Leonard and Josh have a little more time to just kind of figure it out. Like the Wolves do not need Leonard Miller right now,
right.
Even though he's been around the team for a year and people are excited, they want to see what he's got. I do kind of feel the same with Josh. They need Rob because of what they invested in him. I mean, Josh Minott was a second-round pick. Leonard Miller was a second-round pick. Rob Dillingham was essentially 3 first-round picks. And Terrence Shannon Jr. is just a little 2.5 with a swap.
Right? It's just a 2031 on a swap, right?
Yeah, but then he was drafted 8th.
Oh, yeah. That's
right?
true.
It's late. No, I just they need some.
No, but you traded that. No, it'd be 1.5.
Okay,
wouldn't it be?
Round up. They just need they don't really need Jaylen Clark either, but he's just a different story, and I just want to see him progress. And I think he's probably, despite being here for a year, at the furthest away of the curve.
But that's what I'm saying. You could tell what his role would be.
Correct.
If you're okay, this is what Jaylen Clark's going to do. Again, I don't know.
The only
what
ones that should be frustrated about this segment of the pod would be a Josh Minott, would be a Leonard Miller, because I look at a team that has, as I joked, 18 good players. They're not, and in my mind, they don't have any chance to be playing in October, playing in November, even when I want them to take a half step back and give the guys a little run. But again, I thought Josh had a better game than Leonard. Leonard in game 1 might have had 16 and 12 had he have not gotten kind of hit in the eye.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe it's
been a weird first 2 games for him.
Yeah. So maybe he, of all people, game 1 was a Terrence Shannon Jr. game. Tonight was more about Jaylen Clark. On Tuesday, there's no reason that's not a big Leonard Miller game, but you're kind of.
I wouldn't be surprised by that either.
Yeah, and you're coming away. I mean, even Jesse Edwards, who his hands are like what Rudy's hands were like early on. I think he just needs to catch some of those tennis balls. But he has a skill and it's size. Yeah. And I'm sure in Iowa all summer or all G League season, they're just gonna be kind of grooming him to be like, if we get to that point where we're on our 5th center, can you just come in and be tall? I mean, C. Hines was raving about how he does protect the rim, and he does do that because he's giant. So those guys, and then just to kind of name a name, but that Nadir Haifi kid.
Heafy, I think, yeah.
Heafy, do you see his box score? 18 points. That's it.
Bucket.
Right, for a guy that he also...
Hey, man, he was diving around defensively and stuff.
Got 7 for 7 from the line. He was the guy they kind of trusted late in game to kind of ice it at the free throw line. I really believe that he loves to play in the mid-range. You pointed that out to me, but he just has that point guard thing. You played with this growing up in AAU where, okay, we need a bucket. We've given up a 10-2 run. We just got to stop the bleeding. I think that kid is, whether he stays in the NBA or he goes back overseas, I wanted to say that I've enjoyed watching him play too, because lefty, mid-range, watered down Daishen Nix with the hair, but he's been fun. And all these guys, they basically played 8 guys tonight, and then a couple guys got 3 or 4 minutes off the bench. But it's a fun summer league team, and I cannot wait to get out of here. But I'm excited to watch them these next couple games, and if they probably win one more, they're going to be. I don't even know now what Adam Silver's created as the tournament.
I think they go to the in-season tournament, right? No.
Yeah, they just have to go straight to the in-season tournament.
Stay in Vegas.
So, what are just kind of to put a bow on it, because there's no more Team USA to talk about. It's been a great weekend here, other than just constant rain, which has been wild to me and ruined my pool days. But what are your just kind of overall first 2 games before I fly out? Thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's what you said, that this has been a fun, interesting team that is playing within an identity, which I think is a credit to. We should give C. Hines.
Absolutely.
That was, I'm sure, a mandate from above of hey, we're going to be a defensive team, and we want the culture that is the big squad to, transcend to this team. I think they've done a good job with it, and they have a talented group, which that in and of itself, when you're a team that went to the Western Conference Finals, a year ago, to have a handful, to have one of the best summer league teams, and for a team that's as capped out as the Wolves are, like I think Wolves fans should be feeling good about we talked about the second window of guys, the guys that one or two of them you would hope are really come in and end up taking a spot of a Naz Reid if he leaves in a year, or a Nickeil Alexander-Walker, or even a Rudy Gobert, whenever Mike Conley, whenever those times end up coming. They do have, that's my take, is like they do have some guys on this summer league squad that I could see being rotation players or more in the next 12, 24 months. And that's a big win for where this team's at, I think.
I think to close, the biggest one for me is, and I got to be around Tim Connelly a little bit this week, and Matt Lloyd and Finch and all these people. It was something Jaylen Clark said, who again I think his story is really interesting. But he's like, I don't regret anything that happened. If I don't tear my Achilles, I don't think I'm in Minnesota currently at this moment. So everything happens for a reason. And it was this part. He said, I'm happy Tim Connelly and them took a chance on me, and I'm very grateful to be here in Summer League. It's a great group. Summer League group is great. The real team back home is even greater, and the guys in Iowa are great. And it's just a great overall organization.
It's different.
That's not, you know what I mean? But it's true the way that the coaching staff, I mean, you have a summer league team that has the identity of what the big league team is. That is so rare, right? That all these young guys that are trying to make a name for themselves, but also older guys like Daishen Nix are like, this might be their last chance. Daishen Nix is not playing summer league again next year. It's either going to be he sticks in the league or he goes overseas. From top down, I kind of wanted to close with this because depending on how many more pods you and I do, the thing that still hangs over all of this, like the beautiful Las Vegas Strip and these rain clouds, is this ownership thing down the road and this arbitration, and that'll have to figure itself out. But getting to talk to people from the Hawks or getting to talk to people from the Raptors, like there are not 29 other great overall organizations right now in the NBA, and the Minnesota Timberwolves are one of them. And I think that's just a credit to everyone involved. And that's how you get young lottery picks or older rookies like Theige to buy into something this soon. So I just think,
yeah, that's a good point.
We played buy, sell, or hold. I mean, I still think Timberwolves stock, despite being now, whether it be 1.5 billion a share or 3 billion a share, like, is still something that's underpriced and something that I would buy because we have come to this before, man, in previous years, and it is, I would imagine players would describe it as a great overall shit show. And that is not the case now. So Cool weekend. I appreciate you having me out here and flying me out, and all the people we got to see. And it's going to go on. I mean, this next week is for the real sickos like you and other people that are sticking around. But I'm excited to watch what happens on Tuesday because you've seen enough from certain guys that, okay, now Leonard Miller, go have a game. Like,
right.
You're back on the end of the totem pole. Get up there and go drop 18 and 14 and, contribute to winning.
No, this was great, man. I appreciate you doing these pods with me right after the game. I think Britt and I are going to try and do one later in the week, maybe Thursday or Friday. We won't have a pod right after the third game on Tuesday because I am flying out that night back to Minneapolis, so I will only be here through the third game. But this was fun. We'll keep rolling with a couple more pods here. We'll keep rolling with pods through July. As I've said many times, August is kind of our time where we take an extended break, though now we have the Olympics. So who knows? Might have some pods in August as well. But Kyle, appreciate you being here. Until maybe Thursday or Friday with Britt. He's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards